Al-Muallim says no country in the world uses weapons of mass destruction against its own people. Al-Muallim says, I challenge anyone who accuses the Syrian armed forces of using chemical weapons to present the proof to the public opinion. Al-Muallim says, in case of a military strike by the West, we have two options, either to surrender or to defend ourselves, and we will be defending ourselves with all available means. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our news for today. Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign and Expatriates Minister Walid Al-Muallim has affirmed that no country in the world uses weapons of mass destruction against its own people. I challenge anyone who accuses the armed forces in Syria of using chemical weapons to present the proof of such accusation to the public opinion, Mr. Muallim added. During a press conference, Al-Muallim said American Secretary of State John Kerry had contacted him last Thursday after 2.5 years and that the conversation was cordial. I told him, Mr. Al-Muallim added, we have a national interest in disclosing the reality of what had happened in Al-Ghouta. He said, Syria had immediately agreed to the UN demand to investigate the use of chemical weapons and that there was no delay on the part of the Syrian government. He pointed out that the UN investigation committee did not ask at the beginning to go to the eastern Ghouta, and the opposition coalition had specified the 4 positions that the UN wanted to inspect. Al-Muallim said, we had agreed to offer all facilitations and guarantee the security of the investigation mission to Syria. We affirmed our commitment to the mission's security in the areas under the control of the Syrian troops. The mission asked to head towards the areas under the control of the armed groups. When they entered such areas, they were confronted with fire shooting at their cars, so they were not able to continue their tours in the areas that were under the armed groups' control because the armed groups did not agree with them on guaranteeing their security. This confirms the fact that we have been committed to the mission's security, whereas the armed men have not. I tell the American Secretary of State, Mr. Al-Muallim added, that we are not the side who obstruct the UN mission's work. What the US administration's officials circulate about the use of chemical weapons is categorically false. We have dealt with the investigation committee with transparency and commitment in order to reveal the truth. Mr. Al-Muallim stressed that the Syrian troops cannot eliminate the impact of chemical weapons because this is in the area that is under the control of the armed groups. If they want to launch an aggression in Syria, Al-Muallim added, they should avoid the pretext of the use of chemical weapons because it is weak and inaccurate. If the objective of their campaign is to morally affect the Syrian people, then they are wrong. I defy them to show what evidence they have. Mr. Al-Muallim said, in case of a military strike, we have 2 options, either to surrender or to defend ourselves. We will be defending ourselves with all available means, Mr. Al-Muallim asserted. He pointed out that the Syrian-Russian coordination at the political level happens almost every day, and the 2 countries' relations are historical, and Russia is part of Syria's steadfastness. He added that there is full coordination with Iran, and they know that what is happening in Syria and Iraq is an implementation of a planned policy since 2009 to get to Tehran. About the American stand concerning the Geneva conference, Al-Muallim said, since the beginning, we have suspected the American intentions towards the conference, and we told the Russian friends that we trusted them, but we did not trust the USA because it did not want a political solution, and the reason was simple. It was because Israel did not want such a solution. It wanted violence and terrorism to continue. Russia has called on the USA and other countries to be reasonable regarding Syria, warning that the search for fabricated pretexts in order to intervene militarily in Syria away from the UN Security Council may lead to a catastrophe. The Russian Foreign Ministry spokesman Alexander Lukashevich said in response to the US decision to cancel the meeting due to be held with Russia in The Hague tomorrow that the attempts to act away from the Security Council once again would have grave repercussions on the countries in the region. He called on American officials and all members of the international community to abide by the international law and the basic principles of the UN Charter. He said, "The most earnest task at present is to hold an international conference on Syria." On his part, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Gennady Gatilov expressed regret over Washington's decision to cancel the bilateral meeting. He added that the work to find criteria for political settlement in Syria was very useful, particularly that a military campaign currently looms in the horizon. Iran has said the repercussions of any military action against Syria will not stop at the Syrian borders, but will go beyond to cover the region as a whole. The spokesman of the Iranian Foreign Ministry, Abbas Araghchi, said any military intervention in Syria would serve the interests of the Israeli entity. He pointed out that his country would conduct intensive talks to contain the crisis that will only be solved through dialogue. Araghchi said the armed terrorist gangs were the ones who used the chemical weapons in Syria, referring to the presence of evidence and indications that confirm such accusation. On the visit of the UN Assistant Secretary General for Political Affairs, Jeffrey Feltman, to Tehran, Araghchi said the visit came within the framework of the efforts to hold an international conference on Syria. He added that the Iranian officials whom Feltman met had reiterated to him their country's stand regarding the crisis in Syria and Iran's warning against the repercussions of any military action there. Jordanian MPs have denounced the meeting held by foreign and Arab armies in Jordan, which aims at conspiring against Syria. A group of present and former MPs, as well as political, syndical, media and tribal figures and retired military officers, appealed in a statement on all the honest people in Jordan. To their forefront is the Jordanian army to intervene to prevent the conspiracy of getting Jordan involved in the aggression on Syria. The meeting comes at a time when Western escalation campaigns and information leakage talk about weapons being sent to the mercenary terrorists via Jordan, and that such activity is being funded by Saudi Arabia. The meeting had started yesterday and comprised the American Chief of Staff, General Martin Dempsey, and the Chiefs of Staff of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey, Britain, France, Germany and Italy to discuss the impact of the crisis in Syria. Meanwhile, a Jordanian government source said today Jordanian lands will not be the place from which any military action against Syria would be launched. He pointed out that Jordan's stand towards the crisis in Syria has not changed. The Central Committee of Fath al-Intifada movement asserted that the campaign of escalation and fabrication against Syria on the chemical weapons issue is just a pretext to create an atmosphere to launch an aggression on Syria. In a statement, the committee said that the involvement of any Arab country in this conspiracy against a sisterly country that has always stood by the countries of the whole nation, supporting them to liberate their land, would be a shame and a stain on the conscience of the rulers. On the ground, the Syrian Arab army eliminated several gatherings of the terrorists east of Abdullah bin Mas'ud Mosque and along Al-Zahabi Street in Babhoud, west of Al-Ummal Pharmacy and near the National Hospital in Jurat al-Shayyah neighborhood of Homs, and also in Haush Shamsi and Haush Abaza in the area of As-Sa'an in Homs countryside. Our armed forces also killed many terrorists and injured several others near the post office and Mahmoud Mosque in Ar-Rastan, the old district and the roundabouts in Taldao, in addition to destroying a rocket launcher for the terrorists east of Tel Bise. Russia sent today a plane carrying 20 tons of humanitarian aid to the Syrian people. This batch of assistance is added to other previous batches presented by the Russian people to support the Syrians. The assistance was gathered at the initiatives of individuals and social organizations in various Russian cities expressing solidarity with the Syrian people. With this, we end our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Nariman Qassam, but after a short break.